Welcome, everyone. Welcome all our attendees. Welcome all persons online to this partnership between JAMPRO and UDC as we look to the business opportunity that is the Two Sisters Cave. Business opportunity between that is a government divestment property that would kind of give the details on what the opportunities are and also provide you with opportunity for a Q&A. But before I get into any further discussions, I'd like to walk through the ground rules for the webinar today. Simple, the webinar is being recorded. All video and audio have been turned off for participants. If you have questions, please type in the Q&A box below, not the chat, and your question will be answered by one of the panelists live or responded to in the box. So the first off, what I would like to do is to introduce our panelists today. We have with us Miss Dina Chatri, who will be going through a presentation about the details of the opportunity, which is the Two Sisters Cave. And also after that presentation, we will transition into a Q&A section that will give you the opportunity to put questions to the General Manager of UDC, Mrs. Heather Pinnock, and also Mr. Norman Nair, Vice President of JAMPRO for the Sales and Promotions Division. Now, what I'd like to do also is give you a brief background, because I'm sure some of our attendees are wondering. This partnership between JAMPRO and UDC, and I'm happy to speak about it because there is an MOU that we signed in June 17th last year, 2020. And what the MOU really allows us to do is leverage the strength of these two strong agencies in the promotion and divestment of government property and attraction. So it really is an excellent alignment and partnership that we look to bring and deliver these opportunities to the wider public. Also, what I'd like to speak to, of course, is just a brief introduction on the Two Sisters Cave. It is an amazing beachfront property that really focuses and gives persons the opportunity to invest in sustainable ecotourism. 26 acres out in Hellshire, St. Catherine, but I won't speak to the details now. I will give Miss Dina Chatri the opportunity to walk you through all the wonderful information and details about the property itself. And without any further ado, over to you, Dina. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. So today we have, as Gabriel pointed, alluded to this exciting business opportunity for you to provide to us, the UDC, proposals for the Two Sisters Cave property. What is the Two Sisters Cave property? Or it is an attraction that the UDC has managed for many years, but due to financial constraints, we decided to close in 2014. It's located in the Hellshire Hills in St. Catherine, and the Hellshire Hills, if you know Jamaica, is an important part of the Portland by protected area, which is internationally recognized, a recognized area for environmental importance. Just a little history about the caves. We know the caves date back to the 1200s, with a story being told about two sisters who escaped a slavery plantation and decided, and they met their demise in the caves, hence the name Two Sisters Caves. So the caves have a rich history of the Taino culture as well as the Jamaican culture in general, and also has the environmental sensitivities attached to it. So the caves are on a property 26 acres, as Gabriel alluded to. The development of the property is laid out where the caves are the focal point of it. We have six buildings scattered across the entire property, but mostly in the center of the property where the most activities lie towards the cave. The The buildings are made from wooden and what we call cut stone, and they have steps and wooden decks throughout the property. So the caves, both caves, they have a large sinkhole measuring about 80 meters. The caves contain fresh water, what we call spring water, and they are separated by fallen rocks and what we know as stalagmites and stalactites, colorful formations as well. So, Two Sisters Cave, not just we focus on the two caves, but on property. It is said that nature trail, there was a nature trail attached to it that led to another cave that's on property known as the One Brother Cave. So along the nature trail that's provided or path that's provided around the property, you can find another cave which is known as the One Brother Cave. The concept is generally for a family-oriented entertainment type. It has grass areas, park-like picnic areas, gazebos, concrete benches, tables, complementing the facility. There's also the environmental aspect surrounding the park where the ornamental plants and exotic flowers are part of the whole attraction itself. So that tells a story along the nature trail.
Just a quick demo. Can you just confirm if everyone is seeing the presentation, please?
Is everyone seeing the presentation?
We are seeing the presentation, thank you, but could you place it in full screen mode? Perfect.
So in continuing, so as I was saying, we have ornamental plants and exotic flowers right across the property with the natural vegetation for including cactus plants as one of the main things. I also mentioned that there's approximately about 6 buildings. These buildings include what we have as a ticket booth. We also have a food and beverage area, as well as a gift shop, male and female restrooms, the cave entrance where you go and get your safety gears when entering the cave, and a generator room. There, on property, there's also a parking facility there that can host about 20 to 25 cars on property. So, what's the opportunity that we have? The opportunity we want you to develop and operate an eco attraction that complements the activities that are already there. This will be done through a lease agreement for approximately 10 years with an option to renew. You're supposed to repair, maintain, and enhance this property to preserve as well as showcase the historic, cultural significance and the environmental factors. Proposals are encouraged to incorporate elements of the Jamaican historic Taino culture, which gives additional significance to the site. One main thing that we want to bring out is, or one main question in preparing a proposal that we'd love for you to answer is, if you had this property to develop an eco attraction, how you want you to ensure that it celebrates the history that's already there, from the 1200s, the natural environment, as well as the culture of Jamaica. So any questions about this proposal that we have? The proposal is open and will remain open until February 23rd, 2021. We will be hosting questions 2 weeks prior to the close of this date, as well as if there are any requests for site visits, you can contact us directly or through JAMPRO or partners for any additional information. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dina, for that detail-oriented presentation. If you have just joined us, I'd like to encourage persons that they're able to actually see the presentation via the JAMPRO YouTube page, which we'll post shortly after our webinar here today. Also, if you would also like more information and to submit your interest for specific questions, you can visit the JAMPRO website, dobusinessjamaica.com, follow the link and submit your interest in the in terms of submitting the proposal, and from there you'll be contacted by UDC. All right, so what we'd like to do is now enable our attendees, and I see that the Q&A section, we have a few questions here. We allowing our attendees to ask questions which you will then answer relative to the details of the project itself. Now, the first question I'd actually like to put to our VP of Marketing, Mr. Norman Nair. How can JAMPRO support potential investors on this specific project? Over to you, Norman. I think, Norman, you're on mute.
Thank you, Gabriel. And I just want to say welcome to everyone who took the time out to participate in this briefing session. Firstly, I just want to recognize the partnership between UDC and JAMPRO as we come together to promote investment opportunities, UDC assets and leveraging, the promotional skills capability of the JAMPRO organization in support of that. As it relates to JAMPRO, we typically provide a number of support services to our investors that range from, helping to select site selection, help with market research for particular investments. We facilitate business matchmaking, if you will, between potential investors and local interests around these assets. But as it relates specifically to this particular initiative that we have on the table, I think one of the things that JAMPRO does or will be able to do is to facilitate, all the kind of stakeholder meetings and site visit to this specific site and to address any kind of questions and concern. We have a strong relationship with the parties at NEPA, and so we meet with NEPA to develop assistance around any kind of technical issues associated with the project, and so we're part of facilitating that. Also, a key element of this is that we shop these potential investments with financiers, and in so doing, we secure interest for financing of the opportunity. So JAMPRO plays a critical role in supporting this and similar kinds of investment, and we look forward to engaging with potential interests.
Thank you very much for that response, Norman. I'm seeing questions coming in here, and the first question I'd actually like to speak to is from Joe Spalberg. He mentioned, does your presentation include pertinent details on capital required, ownership, number of rooms, revenue projections, and ROI? If not, can this information be provided? And of course, this is a question that would be directed to UDC.
Could you just give me that question again, please?
Sure. Or can you provide information on capital required, the type of ownership? I think it's a lease, a number of, well, it says rooms. I'm not sure why the question has rooms, revenue projections, and ROI. If not, is there any possibility of providing this information?
Okay, well, I want to thank you for that question, but I think there may be a little bit of a misunderstanding. So we would have presented that it's a 26-acre property. There are 6 buildings on the property, but the property is currently closed. It is not an operating property. So they wouldn't have that kind of business operation details at this time. What we are sharing is the opportunity for new investment and new business opportunity.
Okay. Thank you for that.
UDC will maintain the ownership and we're offering an opportunity for lease and management.
Perfect, thank you. So just to confirm, the submission deadline is February 23rd. Another question here, without putting it to the panelists, I'll just confirm on behalf of the panelists. The previous deadline was February 2nd, I believe, but it has been extended to February 23rd for the submission of your proposal. I'll move to the next question, which also goes to UDC. What is your vision for the caves in terms of what they would want to see potential investors come in and do or execute? So in other words, what is your end goal? Because this is a sustainable ecotourism attraction, so I'm sure there's a vision that you have in mind.
Okay, let me speak to the vision of the UDC in general. UDC, our mandate is to make development happen. And indeed, lately what we've done is extended that mandate to say making development happen sustainably. So we add sustainably because in everything we do, we try to balance all the elements of sustainability, and that is that it addresses the social, economic, and environmental concerns at all times. This is a wonderful opportunity. It is in a community that UDC has been involved in for many, many years. Hellshire is a community that we have developed housing lots and other facilities over the years. We own the Fort Clarence Beach Park, which was divested in partnership with JAMPRO just, I'm going to say a year, but I think it's now 2 years ago. And that is a public beach park which is owned by the UDC and is currently in development as a pretty awesome eco attraction. And this Two Sisters Cave is another opportunity. As I said, Hellshire is a growing community. It is a fairly well-established dormitory of Kingston and Portmore. And so you will have already audience in Hellshire. It's not far from Kingston. It's part of the larger Kingston metropolitan area. So we expect that we would get people from Kingston and around. But I would go further to say that the opportunity for tourism is also a very real one. As you know, we have opened a cruise port in Port Royal in Kingston. And then also it is not that far from the highway to make a connection back to the North Coast. So those are all the tourism connections, and that we would have a market both in the local market that resides around the location as well as the rest of the island. And what we would look at in terms of sustainable development is what are all of the ways that we can use this property, this 26 acres, largely of it goes down to the water, so there's lots of options there. There is the dry limestone forest, there is the waterfront area, there are the caves. There is even a story of a tiny petroglyph in one of the caves. And so we have also the possibility of looking at collaboration with the Jamaica National Heritage Trust, the Ministry of Culture, and their agencies at looking at a cultural installation as well as part of this. We have been parts of doing eco attractions for a long time. We manage Dungeon Falls and Park, which I think is one of the biggest eco attractions in Jamaica. At Dungeon, we have a variety of opportunities. We have from a splash pad for the kids to the beach, the falls, of course, and we now have a partnership where we have a zip line. So we are looking at all the ways that we can maximize the benefits from this wonderful natural resource. Of course, always protecting it and recognizing the need for conservation, but looking at really an awesome tourism opportunity just outside of Kingston.
Thank you very much for that positioning, Heather. I think that if it wasn't clear before, persons recognize the full entertainment, edutainment, and the ecotourism value of this property and the potential linkages as it relates to the airport, Port Royal, local family entertainment value. So there are really a lot of ways that the investment can be leveraged for revenue generation. Now, I'd like to actually go back to clarify a question submitted by Joe Spalberg. He like clarification. He mentioned a number of rooms, but what he was actually asking about was in this capacity in terms of visitors for the property. Do we have an idea of the capacity of visitors for the property itself? I know we said 26 acres, but of that 26 acres, how many visitors do you think the property as a attraction can accommodate?
Oh, I wouldn't want to preempt that. I think capacity is something that would be part of getting the approvals process. So I wouldn't want to give you a figure and I'd be off. But what we would have to do is work with the investor. Doing environmental impact assessments is a requirement of our development process. Mm-hmm. And in that, we're likely to have to establish what are the capacities. It is a fairly large property at 26 acres. So we probably have to establish capacities for various parts. So capacities in the caves, capacities in the restaurant area, and also with the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have to look at capacities in a very serious way in terms of management and social distancing. So that is something that we would have to work with the investor to develop as we go forward, because some of those standards are actually changing as we speak. So those are things we would have to work with our partners to finalize.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, at this point, I'll jump over to Mr. Nair, of course, to include him in the discussion. From a JAMPRO perspective, Norman, what are some of the incentives that the government tends to offer with these types of opportunities?
Thank you, Gabriel. So, as an attraction, the Two Sister Caves would qualify for incentives under the Omnibus Fiscal Incentive Act. And this is subject to the approval by the Ministry of Tourism. It must be licensed by the Jamaica Tourist Board to receive these incentives and can apply for provisional licenses in the interim. But some of these incentives include: one, the productive input relief. This is a PIR, and this provides for an exemption from customs duty in respect of certain dutiable inputs on a prescribed list of goods for importation. So as part of the rollout and development, you can apply the PIR incentive. You can benefit from the PIR incentive. Then there is the lower rate of general consumption tax to 10%. You're able to under this act. The capital allowance, as of January 1, 2014, buildings or structures that are used for attraction, like the Two Sister Caves, may qualify for 20% initial capital allowance for income tax purposes, as well as annual allowances varying from as low as 4% to 12.5% per annum, depending on the materials, primary materials used in the construction of the facility. So, there's also the capital allowance benefit. And then finally, the employment tax credit in respect of PAYE, payroll taxes, offers up an opportunity as well. So a number of incentives for potential investors who seek to undertake the investment here in the Two Sisters Cave investment opportunity.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Nair. And I think it's very important because as an investor, of course, you want to look at how you spend your money and the kind of benefits that you will get back, from that investment, and that will impact cash flow, revenue, et cetera, et cetera. So those are some very important insights. This is an interesting question going back over to UDC. I know that the property was closed previously. Is there any information on the footfall in the 2 years prior to closure and annual cost for the same time period? This is a difficult one, guys, but I'm not sure if you have any information in that regard, or if you could come back at a future time if you don't have the information now.
Sure, we would have that data, but we can provide that after the webinar.
Okay, so and this is so for Naomi Anderson, we'll be sure to submit that response to you after the webinar via email, and of course that will be made public to everyone as well. All right, I'll move on to the next question, which speaks to what is the expected startup date for operationalization of the project?
Okay, so for normally the proposal, when we accept proposals, from accepting through to lease agreement, you are expected that process is internal, and thereafter which we expect between 12 to 18 months startup at minimum.
Okay. Okay, so we're looking at the very least, we're in January now, so around about July next year at a minimum. Okay, all right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, so the questions are coming in fast and furious, both Heather and Dina and Norman. So prepare yourselves. You know, there are a lot coming in, so we will be here for another good 15 minutes. So bear with us, okay? All right. While making development happen, will the Two Sisters Cave remain intact as a historic site? So I know, Heather, this is close to your heart in terms of ensuring that the sustainability and the eco protective type of the investment is maintained. You know, what of the adjoining beach? How will that be protected through the whole development of the site, et cetera, et cetera? Can you speak to that?
Okay. So yes, I'll start by talking about the importance of the caves. As I said, the development of the caves and any discussion around that we would want to do in collaboration with the Jamaica National Heritage Trust and the Institute of Jamaica or Ministry of Culture, because there is certainly an awesome opportunity there to recognize and the Taino culture and the Taino history in and around that area. Regarding the waterfront property, the property does extend to the water. It is not really a swimming beach. Again, in the development and the final approvals, there'll have to be a determination of how the beach license is established for the use of anything on the water. Those things we will go through with guidance from the National Planning, Environment and Planning Authority, NEPA, and that those are things we will work out the details based on the ideas that are shared with us. The property does go all the way down to the water. There is a beach. It is not necessarily an outright swimming beach, but there are opportunities to interact with the water. There is a connection to the water, and I think that is also always an awesome part of any eco attraction. So those are the kinds of details we'll have to work out. I would invite anyone who wants to see it. We will. What we probably need to do, we take bidders on-site visits as they express an interest. I think what we will do is schedule a very specific time in the next week or so, where all interested bidders can have an opportunity to go on site and actually see for themselves. I think it is difficult for us to say here what kind of experience and what that would be. I have been, the vista is absolutely awesome. To sit at the top of the hill, you look down over the sea. It's really a lovely, lovely site. And again, there are lots of opportunities, there are lots of options of how it could be developed. And that's something we would support, of course, through the requirements under the beach licensing.
Okay, thank you. And I think that response also clears up a few questions that were asked as well, in terms of, but you could speak to this briefly, in terms of will the community have access to the beach itself?
Well, at the moment, it is not a swimming beach. Of course, I think those questions might be coming from the news article. When was that about? A few months ago, there was a news article about the community accessing the That, of course, shows some amount of demand because people were breaking into the property to use it during lockdown. So
Yes.
there is definitely an interest in coming on the property. There would have to be a formal assessment of the areas that are suitable for swimming though. So
Right.
Right now it is not a community, it is not open as a community swimming beach. So that would not be something that would need to be maintained. However, we will determine how we can introduce the use of the water in collaboration with NEPA.
Okay, thank you for that.
Water in the caves, which is what I believe also some of the interest was in. Some of the unplanned interest was in some of the water in the caves as well.
I have on the same topic of community, I have two questions here, and I'm going to try and merge them for you to provide a response to. And this is the Sandy Hill Bay community we're referring to here now. So, what level of direct benefits do you see the community having, particularly in terms of, you know, spin-off business opportunity as a small business operator, food vendors, souvenirs sellers? Are there any plans or things that you could speak to in that regard?
Well, I think the answer to the question was included in that question, because obviously a success begets more success. So this is an opportunity that, as I said, resides in a fairly busy, within a set of busy communities, including Sand Hills, the communities in and around Sand Hills. And I do believe that the success of the development of Two Sisters Cave can lead to many spin-offs, many opportunities. It is also an opportunity for the investor to look at how they can engage whatever else is on offer around, or encourage other things to happen outside. There is a small commercial center outside of Two Sisters Cave, and we can determine maybe they will all become supporting restaurants or souvenir shops as well, because Two Sisters Cave will become so exciting.
Correct. So are there plans to engage the community in that regard?
Of course, and that would be part of what the investor would need to do, engage the community. The community is a community that UBC has been in for many years. There are other things happening in and around. We are doing other work in and around Health Shop. So there are other things happening that will also support this development.
Okay. All right. So as it relates to getting the information memorandum, I'll put that back over to UDC as well. I don't know if Dina, if you want to speak to that, or Heather, you could speak to how can they access the information memorandum. Once they go through the JAMPRO website, they will eventually be passed on to UDC, and then from there, UDC will be able to engage them and pass the information memorandum to them via email. That is correct, Dina?
Well, partly. Okay, once they...
Or they could go directly to your site.
Right, once they're on the UDC website, they can search for the Two Sisters, or it's normally stored under the investment tab. You relevant information, and the IM is available free for download. But if you wish to get a hard copy, you can come into our offices and purchase it for a minimum.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for that. There's an interesting question here from Dimitri Dawkins. He's asking if the blueprints for the property is available, or CAD. You know, people said blueprints don't exist anymore. So architects know all about what CAD is. Are those documents available?
The existing buildings are all fairly small, but they are UBC buildings. So the primary document that we will be able to share is the site information. Remember, it's a 26 acres, you know, so it's a significant property. So we'll be able to share the site information, and we will also be able to share any diagrams that we have of the existing buildings. So I don't think we have gathered those before, but we can do a search for blueprints. Let me use the word blueprints of the existing buildings as well.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. I have a very interesting question here. Back over to you, UDC, because I mean, Norman, we have to forgive because this is UDC show, right?
No, this is UDC's, you know,
right.
We're here as part of the partnership in support of them.
We're supporting, exactly. So are there any approvals needed from Jamaica National Heritage Trust, given that this is a heritage site? She heard commentary, the EIA, but when will the EIA be completed to ensure conservation, protection of the heritage resources safeguard? And I know, Heather, this is close to your heart, so I'm sure you want to answer this question in detail.
Two things. Let me answer two parts. The first is it is not a declared heritage site, but we do recognize the potential for heritage to be a part of the development of the attraction. I would strongly recommend that anyone in their concepts look at the possibility of including some kind of messaging in this. We have in the past had consideration in discussions with, I think it's Institute of Jamaica National Museum about the relocation of a tiny museum that was somewhere else in St. Catherine, in Whitemar, to this location because of the link in the history. So it's not an official heritage site. That is something we could look into, but it is not currently an official heritage site. Regarding the EIA, an EIA is a result of a development plan. So what is proposed and agreed as a part of approving whatever is proposed, an environmental impact assessment would have to be done to support whatever is
development.
Right.
Yes.
So if the proposal is simply to upgrade the restaurant and have nature trails, that's very different from if there is a proposal to, for example, use the waterfront, do zip lining, whatever the level of intervention is, will determine the level of detail required for the environmental impact assessment. And that's a standard part of our development approvals process.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. I think that provides much clarification for the question asked. And I'm seeing some questions here, and I'll try to frame them in a way that answers multiple questions. There's a question around how many investors are hoping to get for the project. There's also a question around the designated attractions, so museum arcades. So is it a situation where you're looking to divest the entire property, or is it possible that you want to divest in piecemeal? So for a restaurant, for a museum, what are the plans? Can you speak to that?
Sure. Okay. I spoke to the UBC engaging with a operator, a investor. So we are looking to have one operator. If you choose so fit to have different persons come in, joining in the proposal, sure. But the opportunity, the lease arrangement will be with one operator.
Okay, and that one operator will then be able to, for argument's sake, include other business entities to run the restaurant, the museum, etc., etc.
Possibly, correct.
Okay, all right. Just clarifying for my attendees, because I'm sure that's where their thought process is going, right?
Gabriel, I'm seeing a question here earlier on about the employee incentive. Can get more information on the incentive. I mean, you can always provide more information on that in a detailed way outside of this call, but just to quickly say, under the Fiscal Incentive Act, companies are able to benefit from a tax credit amount to the maximum of 30% of accumulated statutory deduction. And so this tax credit can be applied to the corporate tax that could ultimately see your tax rate, corporate tax rate being reduced to about 17.5%. So, there's a 30% accumulated statutory deduction. That's the employee tax credit. And it in fact can be applied to your corporate income tax that would see a reduction to the rate of about 17.5%. But for that particular question, if there needs to have further detail, we can engage that offline. But I thought I would just highlight the impact that could have for potential investor. Over to you, Gabriel.
Absolutely, and thanks for that interjection, Norman. I really appreciate that because, again, as a shrewd investor, you want to hear that kind of information to ensure that your investment is in terms of cash flow is viable as well, and that is very critical, particularly in the first 2-3 years. All right, I'd like to move on as well in terms of parking the property is large, and it is mentioned that it's a beachfront as well, and it's quite expansive. But is there sufficient parking available, and the road infrastructure condition leading to the location? Can you speak to that as well? And also, as an add-on, what about the infrastructure and the stability of the cave structure? Can you speak to that as well? So the parking, the road availability, and also the cave, the stability of the caves.
Okay, as it pertains to the parking, as mentioned, there is a parking lot, but which accommodates about 25 cars. However, where the facility cannot accommodate parking, we suggest that the proponent arrange for satellite parking, possibly in close by areas. That's also maybe a spin-off opportunity for the community. So, but no parking will be facilitated along the roadways.
Okay, all right. And any insights on the cave and the structural stability of the caves? I mean, you know.
Well, let me just say that there should be no further structural intervention on the caves.
Exactly.
The caves are there as a recognition of a natural structure that developed and what we had previously developed as an attraction around them. We would be able to show them to visit. I don't know of any other detailed structural review of the caves. We manage other caves, and what we do is check. We do ongoing checks of the wildlife that's there, the species that are there. Like you always get swallows in caves, and I'm sure you would have seen, like on UDC social media, some of the activities that happens in our other caves. As to the structural support, the structural integrity of the caves, that I would not be able to give a definitive response on. I can do some checks if we have any other detailed information. The caves have been there for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Yes.
And that is why our intervention would be meant to be fairly gentle, to not impose anything that could undermine the structural integrity of those caves.
Okay, all right. We have roughly 2 minutes left. What I would like to do at this point is confirm for the attendees who may not have heard, if you want to actually view the webinar, it will be made available via JAMPRO TV on YouTube. So you can go through the details of the webinar itself. I'm just been advised that we're extending to 12 o'clock. So please continue with your questions and answers. I've been told that no, please to go ahead. The questions are coming in. We have time to allocate. So let's move forward, folks. But even that said, remember that if you weren't able to participate or to view the presentation that was delivered earlier, you can access the presentation via JAMPRO TV in a day or two after the webinar. Now, there's another question here, which we spoke to earlier, the historical earnings from the property. They say that's a crucial for potential investors. And it speaks to, and this is to the UDC team, the importance of providing that information for persons who are interested in terms of how the opportunity can be turned and how the opportunity can be used beneficially. It was also confirmed, just for the questions that are coming up here, in terms of the number of investors that we're looking for. We're looking for one investor in the business opportunity, and that investor thereafter may have a consortium, for argument's sake, in their proposal. All right. In terms of other questions that we would like to speak to, we spoke about the provisions and the engagement of the community. You want to ensure that the community participates in the development of the property as best as possible, but that will come out, of course, during the development phase, and I know that there will be further discussions in that regard. I notice that this is quite a popular question here. And I would like to give Heather another opportunity to speak to it, just in case that you know, the persons weren't clear, or maybe they didn't hear a response as to how and in what way will the community be engaged.
Okay, let me just say that I'm not sure what the meaning of communities here. The Two Sisters Cave sits in the Sandhills community, which is really a middle income residential community. The attraction has been there for many years. And I believe that most of the heavier community interaction with the beach would happen more at Hellshaw and with Port Clarence. So that I don't think that would be the bulk of the issue here, if that's a concern. Yes, in fact, on the other side of the property is actually quite, it's actually another fairly open lot. And there are some large, good-sized houses around the actual Two Sisters Cave property. The engagement with the community would be, of course, a part of the operators' concerns, because yes, you'd have to determine how they engage. So the company that has taken over, or Port Clarence Beach, for example, they have engaged the community in a variety of ways. There's a very active community group in Hellshaw, the All Hellshaw Leadership Council, I believe it's called, All Hellshaw Leadership Council. And they are a team that we engage with. As I said, UDC has many assets and investments and interests in the Hellshaw area. And so those are people we'll be happy to introduce the investors to. We'll be happy to facilitate meetings to let them understand any of the concerns and needs around. But Two Sisters Cave has been a fairly quiet site for many, many years. Of course, I do think with success, there will be other successes in and around the community, and perhaps other opportunities, which will be part of what we would expect the investors to plan for, and we'll be very happy as UDC to support any other engagement and community relations that will be needed.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'm sure that clarifies that concern. We have to always be mindful of the community issues, and we have to engage them as best as possible. I have an interesting question here from Llewellyn Meggs. And really what the question is about, is there any information on where the caves and their channels run in relation to the 26 acres?
Sorry, could you tell me who asked the question again?
From a Mr. Llewellyn Meggs.
We do have some idea of how the caves are connected and how they run, but I do believe that's some work that we'll be able to do with Llewellyn Meggs. So we look forward to that, Mr. Meggs. Okay,
wonderful, wonderful. There clearly is some connection there, and I'm glad that the connections are being recognized. Okay, most of the questions that I'm seeing here have been addressed. The historical earnings, we spoke to that previously. So at this point, what I would like to do is to open the floor to Mr. Nair to speak to any areas that he would like to address from a JAMPRO perspective, and in the interim also encourage persons, attendees, to continue to field their questions in the interim. So Norman, over to you if you'd like to make a comment.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that opportunity. Some very good questions coming in, Gabriel, but thanks for the opportunity. I mean, just to nail it on the head in terms of, JAMPRO's involvement, a number of potential investors, I imagine, are stakeholder interests on this call. And so just want to remind you that, our role, we play a pivotal role in advocacy on all issues relating to government agencies. So as far as supporting the investment environment, we are a very strong advocate for policies in support of that. And so we lend our effort in that regard. In terms of accessing the various incentive framework, you heard me talk about the different incentives, the PIR incentive, the employee incentive, the various incentive under the omnibus framework. So we are key in helping to provide support for that. in terms of acquiring license and permits required for development activities locally, we're very instrumental in lending our support in that regard. And so as part of that, we engage with key agencies, stakeholders on the project, to bring value to the area. In some instances, we facilitate town hall meetings. So even as there are interests around what the community, ensuring that the community is represented as part of this investment, we also are able to facilitate those town hall meetings. We're a key facilitator also in terms of identifying, any kind of services that will be needed as part of the investment rollout. And so you get the sense that, JAMPRO is a significant go-to resource in supporting your investment effort. And so I just want to say thanks again, Gabriel, for the opportunity to just put that plug in terms of how JAMPRO would support potential investor. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Norman. I see a question here. What is the amount needed to bid? I mean, or maximum, but I know that those details aren't necessarily addressed in this type of forum. So I will encourage the person to engage directly as it relates to the maximum or minimum value of the bid that they were looking to put forward. Before I give a summation, I would like to give the opportunity to UDC to provide an overview and just a summary of, from their perspective, of the business opportunity and the role that they currently play.
All right, I wanted to actually read all our interested parties a little paragraph, a description of the area, since I think that might help with the clarification before we do the site visit.
Wonderful.
So, First Cave is located in Sandhills Bay, one of the residential subdivisions in Hellshire. The area lies immediately south of George's Cliff and is in close proximity to Fort Clarence Beach, the main public beach in the area. The housing mix consists of single, two, and multi-story houses, and the standard of other existing development has set the tone for a desirable residential neighborhood. The area is away from heavy noise and traffic, and the occupiers are able to enjoy various attractions such as Two Sisters Cave and the beaches of Fort Clarence and Hellshire. And there is good connectivity, including wonderful visitors to Port Royal and the Kingston waterfront. Okay, so I just want to give you an idea of what it looks like. Of course, I think we will be facilitating a site visit so that those who are interested can really see it for themselves. That's an important part, I think, of making an investment. And that said, I'll hand over to Dina to just wrap up the details and next steps of this opportunity.
All right, thank you. So we are happy that we had this opportunity to give you a bit more detail, and we're glad for the questions. The question and answers will be shared to all the participants of this meeting within a 48-hour time frame, hopefully. Site visit, as Ms. Pinnock alluded to, is very important to one putting their proposal together. So we will also have a set date published for you to have a site visit with us, accompanied back with us to the site for you to get a better understanding of the site and putting your proposal together. And don't forget, the proposal dates are to come in by February 23rd. Questions are accepted 2 weeks, up to 2 weeks prior to that date, which is February 9th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Team UDC. Okay, folks, listen, I think that we've captured all the necessary questions and we've supplied rich information around this business opportunity. The proposal, of course, just to reiterate, the deadline is February 23rd. So there is ample time to generate your proposals. I see one more question coming in. I'll get to it shortly. But just to further emphasize the process, you can either go directly to the UDC website in accessing or getting access to the information memorandum, or you can visit the JAMPRO site where you'll be redirected in that regard. So there are many avenues to which to get the relevant information. And of course, all the questions that have been addressed here today will be shared with all the participants. So not to worry, you will get all the responses once you have joined. The final question here that we will feed to the panelists is: the community is also able to provide a cadre of trained and, or it seems to be more of a statement. Again, the community issue comes up. Right, the community is also able to provide a cadre of trained and qualified workers to support the growth and development of the successful business. And it speaks more, again, that how do we ensure that we engage the community in these development, in these divestment projects. And I know that this will be a part of the engagement as we continue to drive for the development and the economic growth of Jamaica by and large. And I'm encouraged, before I close, about this partnership between UDC and JAMPRO as we continue this series of business opportunities that we will be rolling out. So stay tuned to this space. There are many wonderful opportunities that the Team JAMPRO and Team UDC will be delivering here as a vehicle to you to provide you with detailed and rich information. And of course, you'll be able to access after, and you'll have the sufficient time to then submit your proposal within the relevant deadlines. With that being said, we're 4 minutes to noon, so we'll end a little bit early, but I don't have a problem in that regard. I think we've actually captured all that is necessary. Thank you very much to VP Nar, Vice President of Sales and Promotion of JAMPRO. Thank you very much to Ms. Dina Chatri, the Business Development Director of Business Development at UDC. And of course, Mrs. Heather Pinnock, the General Manager of UDC, and myself, Gabriel Heron, Vice President of Marketing at JAMPRO. And with all that said, thank you very much to the attendees. Thank you very much for submitting your rich and insightful questions, and we look forward to further engagement. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.